I feel like nowadays one of the ultimate acts of trust in God is just saying, I'm going to go to bed. When I first started making content for this channel, my vision was to do something like this, but I didn't really have the technology to do it. My vision was to basically bring the camera along with me while I did just like my everyday mom stuff, but without it like really interrupting my daily flow of mom things, because I got stuff to do. I have 5 kids, and especially now because my husband and I have a small business that we run from our home/office. Life used to just be a village, right? It's what everyone says. Like, women used to just take care of kids and then get their socializing in, going down to the river to do their laundry. I don't know. As introverted as I am, I really crave that interaction. And so I thought I'd kill 2 birds with one stone, where like people ask me a lot when they see me out in public, like, how do you do it? How do you manage life with 5 kids? And that's another thing. Like, in today's society, we don't have the village, and we also, like, it's not normal anymore for people to see large families. I didn't come from a large family myself, so I just like kind of want someone to talk to, someone to like verbally process my thoughts with. And also, I thought, it would be like a win-win situation, because the world is kind of seeing like the normal day-to-day of a stay-at-home mom of 5. So yeah, but when I had this idea to have like a kind of like window into the life of a stay-at-home mom, but then I realized, no, well, number one, I kind of got distracted because I had some other ideas of like videos where I made like more kind of highlight videos of me like restocking my pantry, or just like on one specific topic, like me talking about our homeschool curriculum, things like that. You can look on my page. But those types of videos, like, they took a lot of time to edit. Also, like, the whole process of filming those types of videos, it interrupted my daily life more than I wanted it to. I took a little break and I realized, like, I needed something that would pick up my audio. So I got this little, it's probably French and I don't want to mispronounce it, like lavalier microphone. It basically clips onto your clothing. And I think that'll make like the type of video that I want to make possible, because like the whole idea is that I'm like talking to you, but if I don't want to interrupt my daily flow and my chores and whatever to do that, like I need to be able to walk around and do stuff, but you still need to be able to hear me. So I think this will be a good investment. But also the second thing is that shortly after I decided to make videos for this channel, my husband and I started a business, and so that kind of got in the way. But the positive to that is that, sorry, I have to be a little bit quieter here because my kids, I realized that a positive of that was that I learned how to use these new tools online. That's like part of our business in having a podcast. And so we invested in some online software that makes editing like long form conversations easier. And so I have the tools now. I think this microphone is super cheap, and I know the sound is off. Eventually, I plan to upgrade it, but for now, I think it's fine. So, all the tech talk aside, I had this idea recently driving to Michigan to see my godson get baptized. Just because of the way my brain works, like, I need to have some sort of outline. Otherwise, two extremes will happen. Number one, I could ramble and just go nowhere with what I'm doing. I don't want to just talk for talking's sake. I want to have like an interesting topic, hopefully that's helpful. And then number two, the other extreme is that I just don't even know what to say. It's like the equivalent of writer's block, I guess, but for content creation. So I had this idea of having segments in order to keep myself on track and to kind of simplify the process of doing these. I thought it would be ideal to have just like set topics that I talk about in each episode. So, I brainstormed and I picked out the ones that I thought were the most helpful, interesting. So number one is what's happening, just a general life update. And the idea behind all of these topics is like, they're topics that would mostly naturally come up in like conversation if you invited a friend over to have coffee with you. So number one is what's happening, just a life update. Number two, search history. You can tell a lot about a person's life by just looking at their search history. I probably wouldn't voluntarily show a good portion of my search history as a mom, but I think like volunteering some of that information would actually be kind of interesting and like a good jumping off point to talk about like other aspects of my life. Number three, this is nice, which is just like a segment where I talk about things that I'm enjoying in life, whether it be like a new product that I'm trying or a new routine that I'm implementing or a new place that I went that I liked or whatever, a resource, a book, things that I dig. Number four, I've been thinking. This segment is just about miscellaneous things that run through my head when I'm falling asleep at night or when I'm doing mindless tasks like washing the dishes and stuff like that. And then the last one was just Q&A because sometimes people ask me questions and thought it would be a fun way to incorporate that. And also I kind of want this to be like not just me talking at a camera by myself. I am by myself, but the social aspect of it. So let's just get into it, I guess, and go through my 5 topics.
What is happening?
So it's 6:30 a.m. right now, and today is technically day 1 of summer break. I'm just going to start putting go backs. I think my oldest, she finished up her first grade year. She is really excited about that. And so to celebrate, I told the girls that I would take them to a new library that we've never been to before because there's a whole network of libraries locally that all participate in the same system. And so my library card that I have for our family, it works at all the other locations, but we've only been to 2 of them. So that's what we're doing today. And normally I pack our lunch when we go to the library, but since we're going further away and there's a lot more logistics to deal with, especially now that my twins are walking, they're almost 2 now. It makes me nervous. So I'm just going to go to McDonald's today. We're going to drive through. Also, our sitter who comes, our nanny, I guess you'd say, we hired to help me do my work for our small business. She comes at noon most days she comes at noon. So my idea is that like once the kids wake up, we're going to leave the house and hopefully leave it nice, and then we'll come back around lunchtime having already eaten in the car and the house will be nice. I have this thing where like even though like one of the duties that our nanny has agreed to is like keeping the house somewhat tidy, I feel the need to at least have it like this baseline level of tidy before she even gets here because I don't know, I just think it's polite. So yeah, that's what we're doing today.
Let's check that search history.
Boy, something that's been on my search history a lot lately is TraverseCityRealtor.com. I went to visit my friend in Michigan. As I said, it was an awesome road trip, and I fell in love with Traverse City. Northern Michigan in general. It reminded me a lot of Oregon. So we've been living in Wisconsin for the past 4 years or so. I don't know. I don't miss a lot about Oregon, but one thing that I do miss, besides family, of course, is just like the geography. I don't know if that's the right word, like the weather and also just like the beauty of the outdoors in Oregon. It's just different than it is here. There's just like, it's the evergreens for me and like the hills, like in Oregon, at least where we lived in Oregon, because it's a little bit diverse depending on where you're at in the state. Yeah, driving through, it was so beautiful. And it reminded me a lot of Oregon. And right now we're at a time in our life where we're working toward, with our business, being able to afford a larger home. We're thinking about making a move. And since my husband, his day job is remote and also like our small business is remote, we have a lot of freedom and like where we can end up. And I really, really love this family, our friends. Obviously, like my friend and I are friends, but also like my husband and her husband get along and they both like golf and stuff. And we're also in like a similar stage of life, like raising young kids. So, like number one, we want a bigger house. Number two, we want to like have some land, and the land out there is so beautiful and it's clean. To me, it's like the Shire. And number three, we want to be next to like on the same plot of land close to people that we really like doing life with so that we can have that village more built in. It's a possibility, and maybe it's a long shot. I don't know. Moving anywhere is stressful, but moving across states, we've done that once before, and it wasn't even from a house. It was to a small apartment, and we got rid of basically everything that we had when we made that move. And so even with that, it was still stressful, let alone now we're going from a house to a house. We have accumulated a lot more stuff. And I don't know if we're necessarily going to get rid of everything again this time because we have established, our family a little bit more. But anyway, that's been in my search history.
This is nice.
There's a lot of nice things in my life that I could share. I think it would be like an endless list. But number one thing is that, so when my husband and I started our business, and even before then, we were going to spiritual direction with a priest who's no longer in our diocese. He's still alive, but he's not in our diocese anymore. Maybe we'll still keep that relationship going with like Zoom calls. I don't know. But anyway, he had us waking up at 5 in the morning for the first time in our lives. And I've never really been a morning person. But, as with many things in life, as you make the active choice of your will to change some routine or some behavior, like it's just a habit. And after a while, you get used to it. And so now I guess I'm a morning person, and waking up at 5 for a long time is going really good. But then as our business has started ramping up, like I felt like I needed more time in the morning just to myself, because slowly like that morning time started getting eaten up by like our business. So basically what I do every morning is I wake up, hit the floor on my knees, me and my husband, we say our morning prayer together. And then I start a load of laundry, I unload the dishwasher, I do some physical therapy exercises, maybe fold a little bit of laundry. And then by that time, the sun is starting to rise, and I have a key to our church that we live next to. And I'll go and like do my Lectio Divina prayer, which is like meditating on scripture. After I get home from my prayer time, my husband would grab me and we do like business stuff together until the kids woke up, basically. But anyway, I just felt like I needed a little bit more of a buffer time where I could do things just like this. And so my husband and I were like, well, what do we do? Like, everyone says this. I feel like there's not enough hours in the day, even waking up at 5. So we kind of like looked at each other and we're both like, maybe we should try waking up at 4. And talking through it, we both agreed, like, yeah, if we did that, we'd have to start going to bed at like 8:30 to get enough sleep. I don't know. What are you going to do? Are you going to carve out more time in the evening, or are you going to carve out more time in the morning? And for us, because our kids have a pretty set schedule of sleep, and knowing that like they wake up at 7 every day, it's a bigger motivation if you're doing stuff before the kids wake up, to get it done before that 7 a.m. hard start. But at nighttime, it's like this illusion of having more time. You think that you can just like eke out one more hour at night, but you're really just screwing yourself over, because then you feel like crap the next day. And so for me, I thought the decision seemed easy. Put that extra hour at the beginning of the day and not the end of the day, because number one, I had more energy and more focus. And number two, that motivation of kids are waking up at 7 a.m., it keeps me on track. I never thought that I would be a 5 a.m. person, much less a 4 a.m. person, but that is a new thing in our life. And it has honestly been like a huge game changer. The initial starting to wake up at 5 a.m. as opposed to like 7 a.m. when my kids would wake up, that was harder than the transition from 5 a.m. to 4 a.m. because it just took more discipline to get over the impulse of hitting snooze and sleeping in a little bit extra. Once you develop that base skill of just like, leap of the tiger, as our missionary priest that we went on mission with called it, once you have that base skill, starting your alarm an hour earlier, it wasn't too bad. So that has been really nice in our life.
So I've been thinking
a lot about the importance of sleep. I've just been thinking about the theological importance of sleep, I should say, not the physical importance of sleep. Like, yes, sleep is necessary, but I think that sleep is more spiritually important than physically important. I listened to like a Father Mike Schmidt's video or watched it a few years back, and he talked about why you should go to bed on time, like have a set bedtime. And he said something that was like, if you think that you need to be staying up later because you have all this stuff to get done, like it's prideful. The weight of the world does not rest on your shoulders. The world will keep spinning, whether or not you go to bed at a certain time. And it's an act of trust in God to just leave well enough alone, go to bed, and trust that while you're sleeping, God will be taking care of everything else in the background. And I've just been thinking about that lately. I think we've been waking up at 4 now for a month. And yeah, God works the best when we're at our weakest. And when are we at our weakest? When we're sleeping. We're the most vulnerable. Going to bed at 8:30 is not easy for me. I think that's actually harder for me than waking up early because, you finish with your day and you have like a whole day worth of stuff to like chew on, future to-dos that are on your mind, things right now that's all around you. Like sometimes I have to go to bed and the living room is a mess, But when I trust that God has all things in his hand and he's working all things together for my good, things tend to work out better. And that's not just with sleep, but with anything. And when I try to do things my way without deferring to God, I guess, bringing him in on it, doing things that I know aren't good for me, like staying up super late and stuff like that, things just fall apart, And there are natural consequences, but there are also spiritual consequences. So going to bed early, especially nowadays where like we just are perpetually online and scrolling through things. And I'm saying this as someone who struggles with that myself. I feel like nowadays one of the ultimate acts of trust in God is just saying, I'm going to go to bed when I set out to go to bed. And in fact, when I do my Lectio Divina, I usually write down like a resolution, a little act that I can do to like grow in detachment and holiness. Man, lately my resolution has been to just go to bed at 8:30, like be in bed by 8 o'clock, go to bed at 8:30. And it just changes everything. Granted, I am in a season of life where I'm not up throughout the night nursing a baby or anything like that. And I don't know, maybe that will change, God willing, if we get pregnant again. But for now, I don't really have any excuses. The best thing that I can do for my family, for myself, for my trust in God is to just leave it to him, get in bed by 8:30, and then the next day start afresh and just jump into it, consult God first thing in the morning. All right, how am I supposed to live my life? I think that's just something that I've been thinking about.
You've got questions, I've got answers.
My kids are going to wake up in like 13 minutes, so I guess I got to speed past this, but this is the reason why I have decided to just like go ahead and do this, is because I actually got a question, my first ever question, I think, on my YouTube channel from a lovely woman named Caitlin asking me to settle a debate between her and her husband on a baby name. So first off, I'm an internet friend. You have to live with your husband for the rest of your life, or you get to, I should say. So take my opinion with a grain of salt, but you wanted to know if I liked the name Cosmos. That's a saint name. It appears in the canon of the Mass when the priest is asking for the intercession of the saints. I think it's before the consecration. For me, it was an automatic yes, just because it's been on my list before. We are a C name family. There's a story behind that, but I'm not going to go into it now. My poor husband, he's the only one without a C name, and he's also the only male in our household. But anyway, I really like the name Cosmos. I don't know what my husband's thoughts are on that. Maybe I should have asked him. I'll drop it down below, I guess, if I think about it before I post this and while I'm editing it. You also asked if I like the nickname Cosmo. That one, I'm not so sure on. Just personally, like thinking about, you always think about this, right? When you're coming up with names for your children, what are the nicknames going to be? The nicknames given by a family, but also the nicknames given by peers and the connotations that those names have. So Cosmo, it makes me think of like that smutty magazine, but maybe that's just my age. Magazines are becoming like more and more relevant. So maybe that's not an issue. But then also I think of Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents, and he's kind of an idiot. So I don't know. Like, again, that's another cultural marker that is set in a different time. So, but also nostalgia, people are starting to like reboot all sorts of millennial kid shows. So, yeah, I don't know. I like Cosmos. And also, personally, I just don't really do nicknames for my kids. The one exception is my oldest. Her name is Cecilia. And Cece is just like, it's right there. But my others, Claire, Clementine, Charlotte, and Celeste, I just say their names. No nickname has really stuck. I picked out their names and I like their names. So that's my thoughts on Cosmos. Let me know what you actually end up naming your baby, your sweet little bundle of joy. Have a good one.